All right, well, we're going to get started. My name is John Richards, co-founder and CEO of Startup Ignition, and we're going to get started with today's topic, how to pitch investors. So thank you for coming to today's webinar, which we provide just as a way of introducing you to Startup Ignition and just sharing a little mini lesson. So today, we are promoting also our upcoming cohort. There's only a couple seats left in the cohort. It begins in 2 days on Wednesday. So it's a little bit late, but you could still apply and get in, but we've actually may only have one seat left. I have 1 or 2 seats left, but if you really want to join after this, you can communicate with me and we'll see if you can get in, because we do cap it. We're almost basically over capacity, but it's exciting to see the interest still high. So that's our cohorts for our boot camp. Starts with a 3-day kickoff and then 3 months of prioritized mentoring. The agenda today, a little bit about the Q&A instructions on how to ask questions. There's a chat. So if you find in the Zoom chat, you can ask a question there. If I don't notice it, feel free to unmute yourself in kind of a workshop atmosphere and ask a question if you need to. We're also going to just go over my background a little bit and a little bit about Startup Ignition. Those of you that attend these regularly, hopefully I can fly through it and it won't be too boring for you since you hear the same information. And then we'll get into how to pitch to investors. So let's get going on that. So first of all, a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I've had a number of startups. I've had a few great exits. One went public in the .com era, after which I became a professor of entrepreneurship and also an active angel investor. So I'm quite active. I've done about 85 to 90 direct investments and hundreds of others as a limited partner in many seed and venture funds. I'm also an educator. I was trained at one of the top universities in the country, Babson, and also taught for over 12 years at Brigham Young University, and have hosted, taught, and lectured in hundreds and hundreds of classes. Also have been a mentor through a tech entrepreneurship seed accelerator called Boom Startup that I co-founded. I was also managing partner of Utah Angels for many years, which was a long time angel investor group in the state of Utah. Also, I've probably mentored people in the thousands, not just the hundreds. And so all of that's culminated in my boot camp called Startup Ignition, where a carefully honed curriculum is shared in an intense boot camp experience. And about 500 people have gone through it and they seem to really enjoy it. Here are some of the examples of companies that I have been involved with in terms of as an investor and advisor, and you can see some of them here. You'll note that this has been a really interesting year. I've had more exits than ever. Venture ecosystem is alive and well with all of the COVID capital infusion from so much money being created. It has definitely filtered down to the venture world, and you're seeing really frothy valuations and lots of merger and acquisition activity and lots of funding of companies. And my greatest one ever used to be a company called Omniture, but now 4UP has passed it, where I got a really big exit during the last, recently here, actually this year in 2021. And my tech accelerator experienced a massive return of 283 times its invested dollars. So some real experience there. Startup Ignition, it is a boot camp modeled after some of the evolution of boot camps that have happened in the last 15 years, where we try to outperform in 3 months what you can get in a 4-year degree. The boot camp for entrepreneurship has really helped a lot of companies and entrepreneurs move quickly. Again, it's short-term intensive skills training, what to do and what not to do. We're looking for people that want to start a company, have ideas bouncing around in their head. We're also looking for those that are starting a company concurrently with taking the cohort, and those that started maybe in the last year and need help because it's not going quite as well. We also help people land a really better job. About 10 to 30% of the people that come to Startup Ignition find out that it's a lot harder than they thought to be an entrepreneur, and they go out and land great jobs with good stock options because they learn a bit of the lingo and how the startup world works. Startup Ignition model is again about teaching to do the right things in the right order. So if you look at the different phases of a startup as it becomes a more mature company, we go through discovery, validation, efficiency, scale, sustain, and renewal. And what happens is a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of starting at the scaling phase and think that they're a real company and try to scale without having done discovery, validation, and efficiency. And that's a real mistake. So in Startup Ignition, we go through and teach these first phases very methodically and mentor you to get it right. We have a detailed process that's really been worked out, and it's proven and been successful for many, many entrepreneurs. Our instructors are myself and Gary Rhodes are the main instructors. My son, Tyler Richards, who founded the Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp, also takes about an hour of our approximate 30 hours together. And Eric Espinoza also makes available some of the teachings of Gary and myself through a consultancy that's low cost to get some of the validation work done. The next cohort again is this week, starts Wednesday. We hold these at the 5-star Kiln co-working space in Lehigh. It's a beautiful facility. I was there this morning for another event, which was streamed live to the internet, and I spoke at it. And then the tuition is $19.99. We have discounts for multiple founders and for women entrepreneurs. And we also have lots of other activities and follow-up after the program that you participate in. With that, it's all about what's under the hood as we build a nice vehicle. It's not just making it look pretty like this Bugatti. We're also wanting to see that the engine is put together right and really works and makes a high-performance vehicle. That's true of a lean startup. We do it right and make sure it works on the inside as well as just looking good. So the value you get from this is knowledge, mentorship, networking, and peer-to-peer interactions, which are very strong. Here is a recent polling of the recent cohort where everyone that participated voted us a 10 out of 10 on how we did. You can see some of the comments here that they left in our anonymous polling afterwards of how they like the program or not. And most people are very satisfied with it. Matter of fact, it's 99.99% or almost 100%. It's a good value, and I'm really enjoy being a part of it. Okay, with that, the good news is Startup Ignition is a place where entrepreneurship can be taught. It's a skills-based endeavor. And so with that, let's move on to today's topic and cover how to pitch to investors. So pitching to investors is a unique form of human communication. Let's set this up by presuming, first of all, that you need capital, that you are ready to seek for capital, you've nailed your business model, you have some traction, whether it be innovation accounting traction, where we look at the innovation traction that you've gained, or whether we've got financial traction, and definitely innovation traction is a precursor to financial traction. We'll look at your financial traction and how that's looking. And do we have good month-over-month revenue increases? Let's say you're in pretty good shape there and that your deal is investable, meaning you don't have a messed up cap table, that your ownership structure is not goofy and weird and you haven't made mistakes there, and that you have clean founders with good histories, no bankruptcies, that type of thing, and you're ready to raise money and your founding team is complete, full-time, all in and committed. So what do we do then? How do we pitch to investors? Well, first of all, again, as I said, pitching to investors is an odd form of human communication. So there's different ways and different types of presentations you can make. You could just be sharing the concept or idea. You'd be doing a brief elevator pitch, which just gives a kind of overview. Or you could even talk about your business model and what you've done to look at your work on your business model validation. But I'm going to talk about today is a true investor pitch where you've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 investors in a room. You've got a visual and your oral presentation, and you're trying to get them interested in supporting what you're doing by becoming an investor. So what is an investment pitch? Obviously, the word pitch is synonymous with presentation. For good or bad, we use the word pitch a lot, and that kind of cheapens it sometimes, but it is an investor presentation or investor pitch. The parts of the pitch usually are comprised of 2 elements. There's a 1-page executive summary and a slide deck with oral presentation. I don't think I have this on the slides, so I'll share this. It's usually a mistake to provide your pitch deck to investors investors before you're in the room making the presentation. Now, many venture capitalists and angel investors will ask for a slide deck in advance and for you to send the slide deck over. If you can avoid this, it will be to your benefit. I like to say, actually, I like to make my presentation and not let my slide deck go in ahead of me. And I like me to give the presentation live so we can have a real discussion about my venture. Can we just have that happen in a real presentation instead of sending the slide deck ahead? The slide deck ahead is an easy way for an investor to ask you for something, act interested, look at the slide deck, then never follow up or not get a presentation. And that's a waste of everybody's time. What you want to do is get them captive and make a presentation and have a good rapport with them. This also goes for the one-page executive summary that I'm going to show you. I don't like to give that too much in advance, but I might sometimes. I actually use it as I walk into the presentation and begin it and give them a one-pager executive summary where they can take notes while they're listening to my oral presentation. So with that, we have to remember the goal of the first presentation you make to an investor. The goal is not to get a check. The entrepreneur usually has a few minutes to 45 minutes to present. And the most usual time that should be taken should be about 10 to 12 to max 15 minutes of actually giving the presentation, leaving the rest of the time for Q&A. Q&A is where a lot of great things happen in these investor presentations. Now, the goal again, it's very rare to get a check after a first meeting. Excuse me. Your goal is actually to get a great follow-up due diligence meeting, probably at your place of business or where your team meets. And that's when an investor is really interested, when they're saying, hey, after this meeting, I'm really interested in doing, a good 1 to 2 hour meeting with you at your place, really looking at your software, looking at your product, and really looking at what you've got and spending time with you. That's your goal of the meeting. And so when I say investment is never committed at the first meeting, I did have an exception one time with a company called Stardust that I pitched, and I got a $120,000 check right after about a 15-minute presentation. That was a really odd case, and only one time it's happened to me in 30 years of doing this. All right, so with pitching, it's really important to have the skill of being a good storyteller. And a lot of entrepreneurs get frustrated with the process because they go, this is ridiculous that I have to be a good storyteller and have a good slide deck and make a good presentation. My business should stand on its own and should be compelling without the need for our founder CEO to be such a great presenter. And I wish that were true too, but unfortunately it's not. The founder CEO needs to be a great storyteller and tell the story and set it up really well. So one of the things about this communication, as I said before, it's a different form of communication than we're used to in normal life. Matter of fact, you'll find that investors are primed and they come to the meeting ready to invest. Most active venture investors are actively looking at investment and have invested and are looking at deals. So they're kind of saying, okay, I've agreed to meet with you. I'm open-minded. What do you got for me? And really what your job is to not to try to convince the investor to invest because they're already an open-minded investor. You're trying not to lose them from naturally moving towards an investment. This is different than most forms of communication. You would think as a salesman, you're trying to convince and add weights to a scale to tip them over to investing. That's not how it is. It's actually, you need to be careful of raising red flags or taking the pin out of a hand grenade by something dumb that you say or something that you do that makes them feel, oh, I can disregard this one. I'm not interested anymore. You're trying not to lose them as opposed to trying to beat them over the head and convince them to invest. So I like to liken this to kind of like herding cattle to a destination at a ranch, and you are herding the cattle and, oh, you see a gate ahead where they could escape out of. You run ahead and close the gate and make sure that they don't escape out. This is much more akin to what the type of communication that you need to have, anticipating what are the points that would concern them and making sure you satisfy that and keeping them going down the path. Now, the one-pager executive summary, this was over the last 30 years, a company called AngelSoft, which changed its name to Gust, which you can find at gust.com, which is a marketplace for entrepreneurs and angel investors to connect at gust.com. You can put in your data on your company. It will automatically spit out this one-pager. And this format became very standardized for a one-page document to give all the information to summarize a new venture. And so I have Word templates, or I can go to gust.com and put in the data and it spits this PDF out. And so this is the kind of one pager that I like to hand out as I'm beginning the oral presentation of my deal. And as an angel investor, I see many pitches every year in the hundreds, if not potentially over 1,000. And when I get one of these, I like getting that, taking notes on it as I'm listening to the presentation, or writing down the questions I want to ask during the Q&A. And this gives me a place to kind of look at some summary information, and I like having it. With that, again, I don't send this, 1 or 2 or 3 days in advance, because they might prejudge my deal and not even want to meet with me. So I try to avoid that as much as possible. Obviously, I can't always avoid it. If Sequoia or Excel Partners in Silicon Valley contacts me, or I'm in contact with them, they say, hey, we're really interested in meeting with you. Send out your slide deck and your executive summary, and we need that before we have a meeting. For that caliber, I might do it. All right, about the oral presentation. This is the foundation of your pitch. It needs to be quick and punchy. Long, meandering, boring, or dwelling too much on your problem solution or your product is not to your advantage. Most investors at a first meeting are going to say, okay, let's assume your product is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I want to know how you're going to sell it. That's really what they're interested in. And the oral presentation needs to be quick and punchy and get through the material. Animation is needed as elements of each slide are revealed. Today's designers and a lot of graphic designers don't like old style PowerPoints with animation, but it really helps the investor, who's usually around 40 to 60 years old. And you don't want to confuse them by slapping a whole page of information up and having them read ahead with their type A personalities and losing track of what you're saying orally, and then getting lost in your presentation. So the use of animation helps you track along and follow. Graphics should be ultra hip. Now, that's not me. I'm not a hip guy at all. So that's why I need a hipster to help me design stuff. And I'm not even sure what hipster means, but I'm not that hip. But it should be, kind of the latest, coolest design graphics. It would be better to be that way. Now, the outline of the oral presentation, and this is perhaps a slide you'll be really interested in. This, if you go read books, and by the way, I recommend a book that I don't have information on in this presentation on, called Pitch Anything, is really a good book, by the way, on how to make pitches. But this is the way I would use 10 minutes if I were given 10 minutes with an investor in a presentation. I would start with an intro, taking only 10 seconds to say, I'm John Richards, CEO of Startup Ignition. It's great to be with you today. Looking forward to sharing our opportunity. And then I would go into the problem and just describe the problem in simple terms. The problem in the marketplace is ... and explain it in 30 seconds or less. This is where a lot of entrepreneurs make a huge mistake. They are so in love with their problem that they spend 5, 10, 15 minutes and meander through this, when it should be really punchy. Active investors are very used to hearing problem solution statements and get problems and solutions very quickly. It doesn't need to be a long presentation. You can really lose an investor by going on too long. Then I would also share the solution in about 30 seconds, including a description of the size of the market. Here's the solution to this problem is this, and this is what we're doing. And then I go into a use case or a demo showing how the user, the customer, is going to use my product. I often put this into video format so that I don't meander and go too long on this, because I could easily go 5 minutes without realizing it and wasting a lot of time. It's much better to show a use case or a demo captured in a video so that it's really a finite time in your presentation. That's what I like to do. And this is kind of showing the business model of how your users and customers are using the product or will use the product. I then go into a competition slide. I usually use a pedal chart. If you haven't seen a pedal chart, look it up. Competitive pedal chart would be a good term to search for in Google, and it will show you how to really accurately and really robustly represent the competition landscape for your venture. And then, as you'll notice on here, half of the 10 minutes is spent on the go-to-market and the sales. How am I going to sell this product? That's what they're interested in. They want to know how you're going to create channels, how you're going to get to market, how it's going to work. And then I cover a revenue slide for about 30 seconds showing 3 to 5 years of revenue projections. And then I go into a team slide with the photos of the founders and advisors and logos of relevant companies that they've been affiliated with or worked for. And then I do 1 minute on the investment opportunity or the ask. What we're raising $800,000. We have 500,000 filled, and they're looking for the last 300,000 on a convertible note at a 20% discount, and that type of discussion. And that's about 9 minutes and 40 seconds, giving you about a 20-second buffer to fit that in with 10 minutes. I can do this in 7 minutes and do a really effective job. It's hard to do it in under 7 minutes, no doubt. But this is kind of the way to go and what really is efficient and gets people what they need to know in order to be compelled to have a follow-up meeting with you. Now, one of the cool things about pitching to investors is when an entrepreneur is so on top of his or her game that they have backup slides for the Q&A session. So right after you finish, you'll go into Q&A and they'll say, I didn't really understand how your technology works. Can you explain it to me? And then you go to a backup slide that gets into more depth of the technical nature of what you're doing. And backup slides basically anticipate the hard questions, and you're ready at a second's notice to call them up and respond. Matter of fact, beforehand, when you go into a pitch, you and your team would say, what are the 3 toughest questions these investors could ask us that would almost stump us? And then you have great responses for them. And you call up the slide and just right at a moment's notice, know that it's slide 17 after the concluding number 12 slide, and you call it up. That's when I know I'm dealing with a CEO who's really on top of his game and knows what he's doing, and somebody who is somebody I'm interested in investing in. I love it when they pre-answer questions during a presentation too. When I've written a question down and then 2 slides later, my question gets answered, I love that. And a lot of the follow-up backup slides are often regarding competition and underlying technology because you don't have time to go into it too depth. They go, well, what about this competitor? I found this one, you didn't have it on your pedal chart. And then you explain why you did or didn't have it. Obviously, if you missed a competitor, that's a big problem, and you should be aware of your competitors much more than somebody hearing about your venture for the first time. Anyway, with that, the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make is spending all the time on product and technology. Investors care about sales and revenue. So many times over my career, I've asked other investors why they lost interest in a company after a presentation. And they said, because they just spent all their time talking about their product and technology, and I don't believe that team can sell it. I don't think they'll get revenue. And you have to make sure that they believe at a first meeting that your team is with it and has a path to revenue. All right, that is my presentation on how to pitch. I'll take any questions right now. Again, I'm promoting the cohort that's almost full, that's starting this week. Are there any questions on pitching to investors at all? We have a few minutes for questions. Feel free to type it in chat or unmute yourself if you have questions, and I'll answer any questions. While I'm waiting to see if anybody has questions, I'll give you a little my thoughts on where the venture world is right now. Here in the state of Utah, the venture ecosystem is on fire. I've never seen such frothy valuations and so much merger and acquisition activity as I've seen in the last 6 months. Anything touching e-commerce, software, online is just on fire at the highest valuations I've seen. The venture capitalists and acquirers seem to have lots of capital to spend on companies. All you got to do is pay attention to some of the local trade press, and you'll see some of the valuations and the things happening. It's pretty amazing. This is a great time to be an entrepreneur and to hone your skills and craft and to go after capital. But again, it's not going to be like falling off a truck. The best deals are the ones that get funded, and those are the ones where the founding team has really got their act together and are hitting on all cylinders. All right, here's a question coming in. The next cohort after this one is probably going to be in June, July, or August, probably more July or August. I don't announce it until about 2 months before. We haven't set the dates yet. Thank you for that question. Um, uh, what's typically included in the post boot camp mentoring? So again, we start off with 3 days of intensive boot camp all day for 3 days. And then you go at your pace. As much help as you need over the next 3 months, you have prioritized help from us. And we give you some assignments to do and some things to work on. Some people get things done in 3 days. Some people take 3 weeks. Some people take 3 months to get those things done. And after the 3 months, you still have access to the questions, answers, help, and the mentoring, but just not as prioritized as it is. During the first 3 months, you're the #1 priority of our organization. And then you just go into lifetime of having access for questions and answers. And what's involved in the mentoring is one-on-one sessions, meetings with subject matter experts, connecting you to the right investors, the right advisors, the right subject matter experts, the right inventory people, the right China manufacturing people, the right technical people, all sorts of things, whatever's needed. I have a pretty vast network and they love to help entrepreneurs. We've got a great ecosystem here for that. The discount for multiple founders and women founders get $500 off. The $19.99 goes down to $1,500. Multiple founders is 2 for 1 because I don't like having one founder taken and another founder not taking it. That actually is counterproductive. So I encourage the other founders to join by having a 2 for 1. So if one pays, the other one gets in for free. If they want to split the cost between them, they can do that. But 5 times I've taken in a junior co-founder with a senior co-founder not participating, and 5 out of 5, it broke up the partnership. And there's a reason for that. The junior founder got trained on how to do things right, and every day we're living with another co-founder doing things wrong, and that's a problem. And so I don't like doing that. I won't let that happen anymore. If you're not the primary founder, you can't take it alone. What do you do when you have not built a product yet but need the funding to build a product? How do you pitch investors at this stage? What you need to do is make sure you validate your business model. Building your product before validating your business model is a form of waste. You'll learn that as you read some of the material that we would tell you about in Startup Ignition. And that primary material is the Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank, the father of Lean Startup. And you will find out that before you even write one line of code or get beyond a 3D printed prototype of a physical, tangible product, you need to validate your business model. If you have a validated business model, it is much easier to get the attention of investors and fund your company's building of a product. But you'll find out that everything naturally starts coming together when you've really figured out the complete business model. Remember, every year in America, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of products die without ever selling anything or getting any traction, even though the entrepreneurs spent their life savings and a year of their life building a product. Building a product is not what entrepreneurship is about. Entrepreneurship is about finding a business model where you can create, capture, and deliver value in the marketplace. And that's what we focus on. Building a product is part of the process, but not the first and not the only part of the process. I hope that helps you. And we'll teach you all about how to position that right and do well in that regard. Well, those are the questions. We have 2 minutes left. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much for the kind comments coming in on the chat. And I want to thank you for your time today. And I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. And for those of you that are on here joining us this Wednesday, we will see you on day 1 at 8 a.m. sharp for the first day of the cohort. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.